Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here at LoopLynks, and it's a pleasure to meet my fellow panelists, though we have been in communication for some time now. Our topic, as we know, is learning without borders, hybrid, global, and accessible educational models. So, what I'd like to do first is for each of the panelists just to give me a quick one sentence introduction to themselves, who they are, where they're from, and what their main area of concern is. So, we could start off with Dr. Hashish at the end there.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hi. I think I'm audible. So my name is Dr. Ashish Kakkar. I have been a banker most of my life. I worked for 16 years in Citi. Then I was heading research at IDC. I've started my own company. Now, with regards to education, I'm closely associated with many universities. So I'm an expert advisor at NUS, AIDF. I am also a visiting fellow with Durham University Business School, UK, and a guest lecturer for CPD. I heard my friend Greg, he's not there, mentioned CPD. I'm a CPD lecturer at Asian Institute of Chartered Bankers, which is basically an association with Bank Negara, Malaysia. So that's a little bit about myself.
Okay, thank you. And Primash, if you could just give me a similar. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
I think they press the button. This one.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible. Okay, my name is KV Premraj. I spent 38 years in the corporate world, 37 of which was in banking, both in public and private sector banks in India. Post my active working life, I've been wanting to give back to society as to what I learned, and I've been part of the Rotary Club and Toastmasters, wherein I have also been doing a lot of training sessions to share my knowledge. That is in brief about me. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Shishka Karan. If I pronounces that properly, I would.
You're Shankar.
Okay, sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me here, Paul. Yeah, I'm based out of Hong Kong for the last 27 years. I've been fortunate to work on various aspects of Hong Kong, whether you come out the immigration department in the airport, the automation, I was the architect, or the high-speed train from Hong Kong to Guangzhou that you can reach in 1 hour. I was working on the digitalization of the construction of the bridge as well as the railways there. So, yeah, I've been fortunate to be in the digitalization across industries in Hong Kong, and I've seen the journey of transformation in the last 27 years. I'm presently a student pursuing my PhD as well in the same process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. A little bit about myself. I've had over 40 years in high hazard industries. Back in 1980, I left the UK to work overseas and basically stayed working overseas until 2017 when I returned to the UK. Most of the time I was overseas, I was in education. So I've provided training in Saudi Arabia, in Nigeria, in Libya, in Colombia, in various different disciplines. Finally, ending up starting my own company in 2022, which is in health and safety leadership training. My signature program is a health and safety leadership masterclass, um, which I deliver to individuals or to company, corporate, global companies. So, from that perspective, I've been involved in education an awful long time. And part of that is if we look at accessibility, I am actually dyslexic. Um, it's been a problem for me from an early age. Yeah, it's the same. Our keynote speaker is also pointing out dyslexia. So the educational system for me didn't really work because my brain is wired differently to everybody else's. It's just the wiring that's different. My ability to learn is just as good. I have a BSc in computer science and information technology, which proves that I have got a certain ability. But the learning system didn't really work for me, which brings us to our point here. We're looking at learning without borders. So borders can be personal borders, or borders can be physical borders, country borders. There's different ways you can look at the term borders in that one. And we're also looking at the the global. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in first Dr. Ashish. Dr. Ashish carries 2 decades of inside banking, insurance, and financial technology from Citibank to AIG through IDC Financial Insights, and he holds doctorates from Durham and Emilon. He's currently an expert advisor to NUS and visiting fellow at Durham, and he also delivers CPD training for the Asian Institute of Chartered Bankers. So, opening with you, Dr. Ashish, if I could, looking at technology and a angle from your fintech and financial services work, what does hybrid mean to you?
Well, that's an interesting question. So let me give you a few examples, right? So my last class was a week ago when I was teaching people in Lima. That's the first time I had to actually look up in the map and say, how complex is Lima, right? So Lima is in Peru. So it was a school called ISAN, which has basically been started by Stanford under Kennedy. So when Kennedy was there, he had started a lot of US partnerships with South America, and one of them was ISAN, which was with Stanford, right? I also teach bachelor's, master's, largely MBAs in UK, which is largely with my own school, Durham University. I teach at Frankfurt Business School. I teach the EBS. Now, when it comes to hybrid, it's a little different from the regular models that we look at. How is it different? One, you don't know the people. So it's easy to teach face to face because you can make an eye contact, right? When you can make an eye contact, you can see how the class is doing. When you come down to a hybrid model, which is basically using technology to teach, you lose that advantage. You can't really see what the people are doing. And most of the time, I have to look at my LinkedIn after the class to say whether people actually enjoyed the session or not, right? Two, it normally works better in two different profiles. One, it works better with the English speaking people. Now, obviously, if I was teaching in Lima and I could speak a different language, maybe I would have got the same kind of a response, right? Two, it works well when you are with a slightly more senior people. I did try teaching the basic bachelors, and unfortunately my professor set me up and he gave me a bad class because apparently in all British schools the second year is supposed to be the worst year to teach. Because first year they want to listen to you, second year they think they know everything, and third year they are too bothered about getting out in the market, so they have a little bit more docile. So I had to teach the second year class and I had to teach them something called project management, which is not easy anyways, right? So it works better there. Now, I've also had an experience which was not hybrid, by the way, which was face to face, where I was teaching students from Zhejiang University, which is a top five, I guess, Asian university today, or it's among the top five Chinese, right? And I'm going to be teaching East Asian Normal University next to next month, right? Now, there it's a little bit different channel because I would also call it as hybrid because what happens is I teach in English. There's a translator with me who's translating everything that I say in Chinese, right? Because obviously Mandarin is the regular language, and though being in Singapore for last 20 years, I do have basic Mandarin. It's not good enough to teach people, right? So to be honest, so it has its own challenges, but it's a model that I'm seeing working, especially when you're talking about slightly more experienced people, when you're talking about slightly higher classes, when you're talking about things like MBA students, it works. But when you come down to bachelors, sorry, at least in my understanding, it doesn't work. When you talk about people who are English is not the usual language, it's a little bit of a challenge and you would rather be face to face.
Thank you very much for that. Some good insights there. So when you're talking about translations, do you use software for translation, or was this was just a physical person?
So I've used both. So in fact, I didn't use software for translations. I did that with. So I had to give a keynote at Tech Week Asia, Shanghai, and they had a real life translation behind me, and apparently that technology was good, so it worked very well because a lot of people came and told me later, and whatever I could try and understand in my broken Chinese, they told me it went well. But usually in a class, what you do is you have an actual translator with you, right? And then it really depends. Your class depends on how well the translator is able to translate. So when I taught innovations for Zhejiang, the translator was really good. She did a great job. I don't know how the next translators go. But then the dynamics kind of get mixed between you and the translator.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. So I'd like to just move on now, if I can, to you, Shrishna Karan. Yeah. You lead advanced digital engineering at Arup across East Asia. You've got 20 years designing smart operational systems, IoT, data platforms, projects that span construction, security, logistics, and right here in Hong Kong and beyond from that one. So if we're talking about global reach, you are someone who's actually had to make that work on the ground. So looking at global learning, looking at the global side of things, um, through our RUP's reach across markets, what's your opinion of the statement about global learning?
Um, yeah, we actually work all the way from Sydney Opera House, and right now we are actually working on Dharavi in Mumbai, or highways in Philippines, and the new capital city in Indonesia. And most of the times, I don't think as experts we go there to teach. We try to go there to learn. Every culture has its own way of doing things the same way, but they believe strongly in a very different way. You just can't compare Mumbai and Hong Kong and Jakarta to be the same, even if it is the same person. Even though I'm probably from Indian origin, I don't think my philosophy works explicitly well in Mumbai. So if you're working in a global, I think you'll have to go with a learning mindset rather than teaching mindset. It just doesn't work. You trigger the ego of the other person immediately, and so that's the first part. Go there to understand why they are doing whatever they are doing, and see whether there could be anything that you can add value to that. I think this is very important in any consulting and engineering projects. Particularly, we work in projects which is very remote. So we are building a new city in Bhutan where there's no internet, no Wi-Fi, probably 4 hours by any nearest civilization. So you want to build cities that's completely remote, which doesn't have anything today. You will have to understand the complications and the complexities of people living there, working there, and whatever they're trying to do. It's just simply not possible for us to go and tell them use a Microsoft cloud there when they don't even have an internet and a Wi-Fi and a mobile phone there, and they don't have the right kind of food or water and everything. So most of the times our projects, which actually deals with creating from nothing up ground there, you'll have to understand the local civilization, and that's the first thing. So an example of that project, when we were building the Hong Kong Guangzhou Express Railway, we were put up in a gondola to go 200-meter down, and we need to walk 6-kilometer underground tunnel to put up all the safety sensors and everything. And 6 kilometers, when you're walking, it was the first time for a software IT person. What am I doing 200-meter underground? Is my insurance even covered? Only when you do it, you understand what the people need to go through to construct the train. You cannot simply say, sitting above in your office in IFC and ICC and tell that, oh, this will work. It won't. So a lot of times the smart city projects for us is actually underground. And if your underground is okay, your above ground will be fine.
Okay, underground for me has a different meaning, but so when you go there, you're really learning to provide solutions.
Yeah, we're learning to make sure that people are safe. People can really do their job in a very safe environment, bringing that compromise between the productivity, efficiency, and the safety. And that's what we always keep looking out for.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So just going on to Mr. Primaj, yeah, the final person. Primaj has spent 38 years inside banking leadership, and somewhere along the way, he got tired of watching training sessions where everyone forgets the moment they leave the room. Basically, is in there. Yeah, that's what led him to build Speaking Hat. Yeah, one of his solutions. His whole approach runs on a simple belief that the best learning happens when people are asked the right question. Very important that, and not handed the right answer. So, looking at your speaking hat philosophy, Pramaj, on facilitation over lecturing and the depth over scale, what is your take on accessible learning?
For centuries, if someone had to gain knowledge, they had to go to the teacher. But with the advent of technology, you could learn within your workplace or offices. The question isn't whether education has moved, it has moved. But has it moved to the right people? I've been post my working life, I've been associated with the Rotary Club, and we work at in rural areas, wherein in schools we provide a lot of educational needs, educational supplies, anything given. Take the example when COVID hit, the classrooms stopped. They had to be taught in school. So from Rotary Club, we arranged a lot of the mobile phones and we gave it to these students so classes could be conducted by the teachers. But then we had not anticipated some of the problems which Shankar mentioned. Many of the places, many of the students, because they were from the lower economic strata, did not have internet. Forget about internet, they did not even have electricity, 24 hours electricity. To teach, and on top of that, the houses were so small, there was no privacy wherein they could learn. So these were some of the difficulties that we faced. Lack of internet connection, lack of electricity, and safe space where learning could happen. So this is what we need to do. We might be talking about the world having condensed into a neighborhood, but 80 to 90% of the world population, whether it's in Asia or Africa, don't have these basic things that is needed for an hybrid education. That's what we need to think about and do something.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very informational. So, the last part of this discussion was about educational models. So, bringing in myself a little bit at this point, I still am heavily involved with education within the UK. I do a lot of work with apprenticeships, um, especially down in London, in Plymouth, and I look after that. And I look at the way that the educational system works, and to be quite honest, it doesn't work very well in the UK. The system is designed in a way which is what I call the 40-40-40 plan. Yeah. When you do that, you do 40 hours a day at work, yeah, for 40 years of your life to then live on 40% of your income. And our educational system puts you into that program. They teach you to be somebody who is going to work for 40 years. And they don't allow you the ability to break out of that. Most of you here, I believe, are entrepreneurs. Will you give me a hand up if you're entrepreneurs? Yeah, all there. Who's involved in educational? Yeah. What about in leadership? So we've got a huge bunch of people here who I believe have broken out of the 40-40-40 plan. Yeah. You're not in that anymore. But the system puts you into that. So I'd like to bring in Dr. Ashish right now because you've been involved with NUS Durham and CPD training. Do you find that sort of thing in the areas where we?
So, I mean, let me talk about two things. One, what I do and which is being taken up right now very positively in terms of how we structure education and what's the content. I think content is more important today, right? Because believe it or not, we are at a point where we're running a huge risk. The risk we're running is, I mean, I heard everyone talk about AI. I also talk AI because we all need to make money, right? I mean, that's the truth, right? But the fact is that the world still runs on old models, especially where I come from, financial services. Most of the systems are still COBOL based, right? The risk we're running is that once the old generation that knows what went into those systems goes into retirement, we don't have people who are coming up, right? So what I tend to do is I tend to build two kinds of programs. One that focuses on the old stuff because you still need to keep that thing running, right? I mean, it's trillions of dollars of write off today to take that out, throw it out of the system, and say, I'm going to build something totally new. World is not ready for that. We don't have the enough investment money. Two, when it comes to things like AI, right? And I think everybody spoke about AI here. People are not interested to know what AI is. What people are interested to know is what can we do with AI? What's its application? So the courses which I run, like AI for financial services, it's all about where is AI getting used in financial services? How do you get to that? Two, there's a huge need today to learn new skills. And I'll give you an example, right? So I'm building a course right now, and that's for Skills Future. My friend spoke about Skills Future, right? To be delivered in NUS, which is how do you manage an AI project, right? Is it the same project management techniques that we've always learned that goes into managing an AI project, or do you need to do something different? And when you go down to it, when you start peeling the onion, you realize that AI requires a whole infrastructure discussion, AI requires a whole data discussion, AI requires a whole governance discussion, which we don't do in any of the textbooks that we do, right? So that brings two things into mind. That one, you need more practitioners to now come up, like my friend said, right? To after giving to industry to come back and say, I also want to be a teacher. So that's one education model that needs to come up. It's becoming slightly more prevalent, I guess. But my friend coming giving up, me being a banker now getting into education, right? Two, what's happening with especially with when I teach is that let's say if I'm structuring a 4-day program, it's not going to be 4 days in classroom. It'll have it's not 4 days with all teachers coming in, right? I'll throw in a couple of guest lectures, I'll get a couple of people from industries. Then what I'll do is I'll create a whole outbound program where you actually get into an industrial innovation lab to find out how things are actually happening. So that is where I at least see the education models going. And whichever university I talk to now, there is an increase in ask of either get more practitioners into it, two, or get more practitioner knowledge, or do something which is really looking at going out to the university, going out of the universities into that. And I'll give you another example. Right? So I'm right now structuring a 3-day program for one of the stock exchanges in Asia to plan for sustainability reporting. So this was supposed to be in UK. So initially, when we went with the program, we said we do 2 days classroom. One day we actually take you to Newcastle, where you actually see how the industries are doing it, right? Then later we had a second thought. Maybe cost came in, UK. The cost comes into everything, and we said let's change the 3 days to fully classroom because that's a much more economic model. But there was a huge protest. I had to literally fly down to that country to manage the stock exchange, saying no, no, we're going back to the old model. There is a need to upgrade the curriculum, which I think my friend O'Hare also spoke about really well. While upgrading the curriculum, there's also a need to manage the legacy, and there's a need to kind of change the education models to just classrooms to a little bit more of, especially for the seniors. I mean, I'm not talking about the bachelors, right? Bachelors, I would still say the people are trying to learn more of theory. But when you come to advanced classes, when you come to master's executive programs, when you come to doctorates, there is a need to take people out to the field.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, very, very good. So, Mr. Srishakaran, yeah, do you believe that breaking down these barriers, these borders, more practical training rather than these educational models? Do you believe that we should be more hands-on?
Yeah, allow me to say something very contradictory. I don't think the university's education is really practical enough for the real world. It gives you training to learn outside. It gives you discipline to learn, but whatever we are learning from the textbooks is already outdated when you come to the real world. A lot of times people study something and you work a different thing. And the world itself is changing so quickly in every 3-6 months time that you don't want to repeat the same thing what somebody else did as your competitor, right? So every single time you want to be cutting edge, and you don't want to be cutting edge doing what people did 1 year ago. Okay, that's not cutting edge anymore. So in that process, we are continuously to learn. So what is probably more relevant in my view is that the ability to learn continuously and willing to try new things that you never prepared or trained for. I think that's really very important. Speaking about AI, I think in my view, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of myth. While I'm doing an AI advisory myself to a lot of people, and it seems like even if you want to iron your clothes today, you need to have an AI element in it before you can iron your cloth, or you want a washing machine, you need to have an AI element, without which you can't sell anything today. So that's kind of what the venture capitalist wants. That's what the stock market wants. But in reality, I don't need an AI to do a washing machine stuff. So the reality is the critical thinking of fluffing and removing those fluffs between what you need artificial intelligence and what can be done better with a human intelligence. I think really that's very, very important. And with all this, joining the bandwagon, your emotional intelligence is equally important. Um, everybody want to do some course of AI was from somewhere remote from Stanford, and the next day they start about talking about AI as if they lived and worked on it. I had a chance to host one of the senior most AI person in actually UK, and we were talking about ChatGPT 2.0 not long ago, probably 2 years ago. And if you used ChatGPT at an earlier version, and you could actually ask that question, like if I had 6 cloths and it took 3 hours to dry, and if I need 30 cloths, how many hours it will take? Right? It will say like times 30. So that used to be ChatGPT 2.0. Now today, ChatGPT, whatever the latest version is, definitely far more improved, not automatically by the intelligent people training it. Okay. If you just talk about AI, I will probably put it into two simplest philosophy. One is general stuff and one is specialized stuff. You don't want an AI to do a surgery for you. You don't want an AI that can actually go in a lift in 100 floors. You're okay to create a PowerPoint which can grab all over the internet from Google and create something and you can walk through it. So there are things that AI is still not ready, and things that you definitely want to put your own expertise there, not experience, expertise. Deloitte was penalized $600 million while they actually use AI for completely creating all the case study for defense in Australia using AI. And it actually created case studies which was not even existing. It was quoting books that was not even published. So if you're going to just use AI for everything and you are responsible for due diligence. I work in an engineering world where life is everything. So we only ask us, who signs off when somebody's dying here? Is it the AI or is it you? And that liability will make you think very, very clearly to what level you can use AI and how you're going to use that information and how you're going to do the due diligence. So we will always, in fact, these days we write a proposal explicitly. None of the content in this case study has been created by AI or Copilot. We actually explicitly write the disclaimer to say that we take total responsibility for everything here and we have read every single word of that case study. So it is really very important of doing the myth and hype and really when you're trying to provide something that makes a difference to life, how are you going to use AI?
Yeah, I think.
Like, I'll just add to that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been hearing this quite often. So I talk to quite a few CXOs in banks. A lot of them come up to me and said, Ashish, we are in trouble. I said, why? I said, if we don't do anything on AI, the board gets after us saying, you're doing nothing on AI. Are you guys really competent enough to run the bank? If we do something on AI, we're not getting returns. So it is a catch-22 situation.
The idea is not to do anything, but the idea is to take responsibility for what you're doing and you really understand the science behind what we are doing. I think that's really very important rather than just putting something from Microsoft and AWS that like, oh, they did that, because at the end of the day, they're not signing off anything.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that that AI needs to learn, doesn't it? And you have to teach AI. Yeah. So I think generally you need about 90% input to AI. You're teaching it, and then you get the output that you need from that one. So Primaj, going on to this educational models, which particular models do you think are beneficial or good, or which are the ones that you aim for?
See, as far as education models are concerned, why is it people get educated, go to colleges so that they get land jobs? But then are our institutions providing people who are job ready? Unfortunately, in my experience, what I have found, people coming from the campuses will be talking about profitability only. The corporates are also interested only in profitability, but many of the times these people are not compatible. And statistics also shows 30% of the people quit within the first 6 months, sorry, within the first 90 days because they are not compatible with the culture of the organization. There's no effort being made for the new joinees to get assimilated in the culture of the organization. And most of the organizations are only looking at profit and processes rather than people. And I would say if the education system was made in such a way and the corporates were interested in people, the people would ensure that the processes and profitability would increase, is my take on it. So education system should be framed in such a way that these things get taken care of. I'll give another example. I know of a hotel chain, a big hotel chain in India, who do not hire from the top business schools. They go down to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And their logic is people here are more grounded. People who come from the small places are more grounded. They will be able to put people above profitability and profits. So there's a great combination they find in this hotel industry, which is service oriented. So, and that is the reason they only go for people from tier 2 and 3 cities. So if organizations can think as to what is needed and our education system can do and customize their courses to suit the organizational needs, that could be a game changer, is what I feel.
Thank you very much indeed. We have a slightly different problem in the UK. Educational system is working through degree, but then the companies don't want to employ them because they've got no experience. And the way the government is taxing all the companies right now, they don't want to take a risk on somebody who's unproven. Yeah, so we got a problem there. So I've had a 5-minute warning basically. So opening this up to the audience here, has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask any of the panelists? Yes, sir. You got a mic? Thank you.
So basically, I don't know if it is the question or my observation. I recently completed my master from one of the finance institutions in India, right? And we had 46 people in the class, same environment, same curriculum, same method of teaching, but different output. Why? What do you guys, my question to panel is, what could be the reason of different output from those 46 students? That is my observation. I had different, my peer has different, someone has different.
Okay, can I take that?
You want to say that? Okay.
So it's something called absorptive capacity. There's a lot of research which has been done on it. UK Innovation Center has done a lot of research on it. So even if you are all exposed to the same environment, same things, what people what people are able to inculcate differs, right? It's a known scientific fact. You can read about this. It's called absorptive capacity. We normally talk about that in the terms of innovations, that everybody is seeing the same thing, but what I'm perceiving is very different from what you're perceiving, right? Similarly, in education, that's a model that works. That even though I'm learning the same thing and you are and Paul is learning the same thing, we may have different grades because what you are assimilating from that is different from what I am assimilating, right? So there's a scientific research around that. It is basically going to the neuroscience. I don't want to talk about that here, but it is a known fact that people who are exposed to the same thing absorb differently.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to our first keynote speaker this morning. Yeah. You all remember the paper exercise this morning? We're all different, aren't we? Yeah. We all got the same instructions. We all had a different piece of paper. And that's the same when you come to education. A lot of motivations of people. Personally, most of my education after I left secondary school, secondary education, I did on my own. My Bachelor of Science, I did with the Open University. It took me 5 years of personal study to do that. I had a couple of friends who looked at what I was doing and thought, I want to have a go at that. Gave up after 1 year. Couldn't take it. Yeah. So we're all different, aren't we? Have you got any input on that?
Yeah, right. So I'll just supplement that. My view of a good teacher is a person who inspires you more than himself or herself. And a good teacher is only 24 hours better than a student. So my own story of is my math teacher sometimes in early secondary school tried to define what is pi. And he said 22/7. I asked him why. He said 22/7. The third time he basically slapped me, asked me to stand up on the bench, as in like in every Indian school. The same year, I happened to go to the village where my grandma was living, and a farmer was doing a cartwheel, and in typical clay wall, he was writing 22/7. And I was actually asking him, Grandpa, why are you writing 22/7? He asked me to hold a cartwheel, and he actually asked me to mark the cartwheel of different diameters, and he asked me to measure, and it was actually 22/7, 3.14. So for me, that farmer was a better teacher than my math teacher. So it depends for different people. But the same class, I also had my classmate who was like top 100 rank in IIT. He could absorb 22/7 from my math teacher. So it depends upon what individuals appreciate and get inspired. That's how it works.
So my takeaway from the answer would be the methodology or how the student or how the person is learning. Maybe visual is helping him, maybe auditorial is helping him, something like that. That should I to take away from.
Well, we have in the UK, we look at inclusivity. Yeah, we should teach to the VAC system. Yeah, visual, auditory, a kinesthetic system. I don't know if you've come across that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So effectively, we're supposed to adapt to the learners. When you've got a group like yours, what was it, 40? How many people did you have in yours? 40 some people. Trying to do that sort of delivery is quite challenging, quite challenging there. Primaj, have you got anything on this one? You're good on that one.
All learners can learn. There's no learner that cannot learn. Everyone can learn. It's just the mode of what we just mentioned, the methodology, right? Methodology is important. Okay, so I have used various methods like gamification, games. These are very important. They actually make learning fun. And you find that a class that uses storytelling, gamification, does better than the class that doesn't use, the class of students who don't use these methods. And they just go by rote learning or theories or just a bit of practicals. Yeah? And therefore, you need to have these kinds of additional learning methods and approaches. I wouldn't say methods, more approaches, and for the students to imbibe in learning even more and be passionate, have the passion in learning, and therefore you find results much better. And I have actually proven it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we have one more question. And I think we may have to wrap it up because people have flights to catch.
It's not a question, but it's just to add on to what you said. I've been in education for 40 years. I think education also has to be purposeful. So students won't learn unless they see the purpose, the end purpose in it.
Yeah, because they're basically they are our customers, aren't they? When we're educating, it's not about us, it's about them. We're not there to show how clever we are. Yeah, that's not the deal, is it? I can go back to when I was doing my maths foundation for my degree. We started an exercise where we drew a circle, and then we put a peg in the corner in one point of that circle, and then we had a goat, and the goat was tethered to the peg, and the goat, we kept extending the length of the tether till eventually the goat ate all the grass in the whole field. And suddenly in front of me was the formula for the area of a circle, pi r squared. And it was like, wow, how did I get to this from a goat eating on a field? The method was the way that got me there, something I never ever forgot. So we have to, because of timing, we have to wrap it up now. I'm getting signals. Yes, sir. Sorry, you've got a question.
Yeah. First of all, thank you. That was a nice discussion here.
One comment I want to make is that whether we like it or not, AI is coming in a big way. Second is AI is still being used in robotic surgeries, not in that big way, but it is being used in a big way. And third is in AI also, a similar function, what we use in computers, trash in, trash out. If we are able to make the AI learn in a big way, it will be helping us in a big way. And fourth is, if you look at the scenario which is happening in radio diagnostics against X-rays and MRIs, CTs, AI has taken up it in a big way. Whatever we were not able to pick up, AI is picking up in a big way, and it is giving very good answers which we are not able to pick up easily. So my take is AI is coming whether we like it or not like it, but we will have to learn how to live with it. That's
Okay.
Very good point. Thank you.
Let me
One more thing over there to the lady there.
To add on to his question, how 46 students and the different outcomes. I teach in two universities. One is University of San Diego and New Hampshire University online. Most of the time, we don't find physical students. But how do we measure the value of teaching or how you teach? As he said, it's purposeful. The wherein there we don't have any examination, they write it. But every module we teach, they have a lab activity that measures the performance of their understanding of the concept. When you say, I also teach locally and globally, locally we see the students day to day, but the outcome in global education and it's totally virtual, so it's very different. It depends on the education, on a very well panel discussion that we had. It differs to each, and if it is the way of evaluation of the curriculum defines the outcome of the subjects
Yeah.
learned and the
Yeah,
courses.
and just to add to that, I normally track my
After one more
LinkedIn next
question.
day. I normally track my LinkedIn next day, and I kind of wait. So like a couple of times it's happened to me after a lesson. I get like 3 or 4 emails saying, we're a founder. Can we understand from you what a go-to-market model would be? And that kind of gives you a view that look, the guys have actually listened to what you have
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
right? Because they're now coming back with a different problem, saying, "Can you help us solve this problem?" Which
Yeah.
we're facing in our real life.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. I'd just like to add one extra thing for that. Within the health and safety, we have a system called NEBOSH. NEBOSH is a way of training for health and safety. And the NEBOSH organization have moved more to open book examination. It's not a case of learning and remembering, it's a case of learning and applying. And the open book shows whether you can apply what you've learned or not, which I think is an excellent model. And just because it's open book does not mean to say it's easier to pass it. In some cases, it's harder. Yeah. So we need to wrap it up at this point. Some people have flights to catch and everything. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to my fellow panelists. And thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you. And also, thank you for LoopLynks for allowing us to have this discussion.